Bamkast.
Welcome to Bamkast. In Bamkast, we seek the answers from the success. We speak about money, we speak about life, we speak about everything. And we do it with the proven champions in the market. Today we are going to speak about startups. The main topic will be startups. And for these purposes, I invited my special guest from Romania, Mr. Luca Stribat.
Yes.
Hopefully I pronounced it right. Welcome to Sarajevo, Luca. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I love it. Except maybe the weather, but we can work on that for next time, for the winter.
Well, there is a famous pronunciation. It's like in London, but also in Sarajevo. If you don't like the weather, wait for 15 minutes and then you'll change your mind. Basically, when I was looking at your LinkedIn, I saw like millions, thousands of wonderful worlds, dots in your CV. You made a lot, but one of the things there is you are the founder of a startup which is run by Gen Z, and it's an interesting topic for me. And also you are the CEO of Reaktor X, one of the top accelerators in CE region, Central Eastern Europe, for those who don't know. And in general, because we are speaking about startups, I want to quote one of my guests, one of your predecessors here, who told me just in Sarajevo, a small town in European scale, there are 20 to 30,000 ideas created only on coffees, but there is no single, or at least one out of these tens of thousands of ideas get to life, becomes live. So basically, I want to ask you what is the idea, and how should we, in fact, follow the ideas, create ideas?
Right, that's a tough question to crack from the beginning. But my first thought, and in the venture studio that we're running in Bucharest, we usually are responsible with coming up with the idea. And everybody's so focused on, I need a great idea. I need to have an amazing idea. Now, if we are to really break it down, anyone has ideas. Everyone has an idea. You have an idea, I have an idea, the guy on the corner has an idea. Now, the difference between an idea and a good idea is the innovative part, right? Because in the startup ecosystem, if you want to build a startup, you need an innovative idea. If you want to build a business, you just need an idea. That's the big difference that maybe people don't see in the ecosystem. Like, if, let's say, for example, you want to start a business, it's enough to come up with a simple idea. I want to do a donut shop, and then you can maybe spice it up to make it a bit different. I want to do a donut shop where you don't pay the donuts, you pay for the time spent in the donut shop. Okay, that's an idea. It's not innovative particularly, but it's an idea, and it's an idea for a business, and you could do it and be very rich and very successful from it. Now, the part where the innovative idea comes in, that's the tougher nut to crack, because then what is innovation? What really is innovation? How do you define innovation, Because it's such a big word and it sounds so archaic, and it's like, okay, innovation. Come on, I've heard innovation so many times at school. Everybody talks about innovation, but what exactly is it? So I just Googled it one time, as one does, and I found out that in the Google definition, one of the responses was, innovation is the act of introducing something new. It's like, okay, sure. Again,
easy peasy.
Sure, okay, but let's maybe even go deeper, right? So I understood that it's actually that definition is made out of two parts: the act of introducing, that's one part, and something new. Everybody's like, but what is really something new? Can you actually create something new? And that's a very philosophical question. Again, I don't want to jump too deep into the philosophy, but there's actually nothing new that you can make in this world.
But how would you put something in the context? For example, when you study the business schools, the economics, they always tell you, like, you need to produce a demand that people do not know about that they have. And one of the maybe the most classical examples would be a Walkman. You know, because when they made it, Nobody had an idea that they want to put their earphones in their ear and walk with them, or to exercise with them, to spend time in the kitchen with it.
Right.
And for myself, Walkman was like something that changed fully the cultural worldwide.
It was something new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Walkman, let's take the Walkman as an example, right? The Walkman was something new. Was it? I mean, think about it, really. It wasn't anything new. It was something old plus a bit of new. And that's, I think, where the real innovation happens, when you take an old thing and you think, okay, what if we took the, how do you call it? The radio, right? Because the Walkman was basically a radio that you could connect directly to your ears. And they said, what if we made a personal radio? So they took the concept of radio, the old concept, and they added a differentiator, something new, a spark. They're like, okay, how do we make it innovative? By putting it in a context where it's never been, right? So it's like, okay, let's take the radio, let's make it personal. Let's make it so nobody else could hear what you're hearing on the radio. So like you could walk anywhere, everywhere you want, and nobody hears what you're listening to. And that's the old plus the new, the spark. The spark is the hardest thing to find, right? Because you have to take that old concept and take it through literally the entire world and think, okay, would this work as a this? Would this work as a that? And you have to really think about it. It's hard to come up with an innovative idea, but the best part of innovation is that something new is just half of the equation. Remember, so the act of introducing something new. So the something new is great, and you can come up with an amazing idea, but you're missing the act of introducing. The act of introducing is so important, and so many startups skip over that. They think, let's just build this amazing idea that we came up with, and then nobody uses it, or their mother. Their mother uses it. My mother and father and sister and everybody.
Or even them.
Or even them. They
don't
like,
use it.
I don't really think so. But the act of introducing is so much skipped, and it, for me, how I defined it, it was actually two parts. One is the act, right? So the act, how it's dressed, how it looks, the marketing basically, how it looks, what messages you bring on board, how do you make it feel, right? Colors, design, feeling, and so on.
I would not even say how do you market it, but how do you sell it?
That's the introducing part. So the act is how you dress it, but then you have to introduce it. You have to put it on stage. You have to go on a call and say, hey, look, I have this really nice thing. Look, I've branded it. It works in the background. There's some technology that makes it work, and I'm here to sell it to you. You know, again, startups also do pretty well the act of, but where's the introducing part? Because you have to introduce it, you have to show it to people. If you don't go out and show it to people, they will never discover you. Now there are hundreds of ways to go into that, but we have only 1 hour, I guess. So let's keep it light.
I think Mira will not be too much angry on us if we overgo with 1 hour. We can do it a bit longer, but we'll try to fit in within the time frames. There is a saying that one of my friends is always telling, because we are always discussing on the most important skill in your life. And me as a salesperson, and I even within my current company, I went to some non-sales roles, which I was so unhappy in them. I was the most miserable and desperate person when I was not selling. So, and he tells the famous saying, nothing happens until something sells something to somebody.
That's a very good quote. I mean, you could be building it in your basement for all you know, and nobody cares, nobody is looking into it, and it dies there. It dies in your basement because, like you said, it doesn't happen if nobody else sees it. You know, it's the saying with does a tree, if a tree fell in the woods and nobody heard it, did it really fall?
Yeah, right? Definitely. So I want to set a small game between the two of us.
Okay.
So I'm a guy who wants to make a startup.
Yeah.
But let's assume I don't know anything. I don't have a technical expertise. I'm sick worried about how it would be built. Then even if we build something, what happens if a guy who was doing it for me goes away from me? And then, but I still want to go for it, And then I see Mr. Luca on LinkedIn, and I see that he is changing the lives of the young guys who are having good ideas. And I come to you on your LinkedIn and you take a call with me. So, and I tell you about all of the stuff that I have. Let's say my amazing idea is to make an application for, let's say, for the podcasts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to build a platform for podcasts, but I don't know anything about it. I just know what I'm going to speak about, and I believe that I will be the best one.
Right.
So, Luca, what should I do?
Well, first of all, great thing that you came up with an idea. Mm-hmm. Congrats for that. Now it's time for you to throw that idea in the trash. Mm-hmm. That's the first step you take. When you come up with an idea, the first thing you do is you put it in a locker and you lock it there, and you don't even think about it, and you think about who is it for? Mm-hmm. Who is going to use it? Who is going to listen to it? In your case, I guess like people who listen to podcasts will be the ones who will be interested in it, but that's not enough. Who specifically from the podcast audience? Like, is it going to be the people who like working out? Is it going to be the people who are interested in business? The people who are interested in like music and gossip and like hearing about all the fancy and stuff happening in Hollywood? It's like you have to pick a specific niche, because then the first step that you should be doing, and that anyone who starts a startup should be doing, is ask. You know, Henry Ford had that famous quote of, if I asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses. So taken out of context. Because if you ask people at that time, when Henry Ford was alive, what do you want? Yeah, sure, faster horses. But at the end of the day, if you look into the response, it's like they want faster horses because they want to get from A to B faster. It's not about the horse. It's about getting from A to B. It didn't have any connection with the horse. So you as well will be asking people, what do you want to hear about on a podcast? They're going to tell you, I want to hear about this, and that. And that's going to be great. You're going to write it down. And then you're going to dig even deeper. And why do you want to listen about sports? Why do you want to listen about business? Why is it that you would come to hear and to listen to this content? And then you get to actually understand the motivation behind it. When you know someone's motivation for doing something, it's very easy to help them achieve that goal. Because now suddenly you're not doing a business, you're helping somebody.
Yeah.
And helping somebody is very straightforward.
Fantastic.
And that's just the first step. I mean, we could keep going through it.
Yeah. I just remembered one of the influencers from the US. I'm not a fan of those motivational speakers, because they tend to oversell the life and oversell the capitalism. And I'm not a big fan, but he tells a really good story about how to make money. Yeah. He tells me, try to find problems which are solvable by you. If you have a problem to solve, there is money. And what you told me, the segmentation of the market that you are attaching, the investment on your audience, you are, even though it's not a big problem, but their problem is quality content. So you are resolving a quality content for them, and that's your niche, right?
Yeah, especially if you segment it like that. But then again, there are a lot of factors that come into the equation like that, because of course like Americans say, find something that you would be able to solve. But realistically, if you have no skills and no know-how, and you don't know any industry, like how will you find that? Because it's very abstract. And the Americans do it very well, because for them the business model is very much focused on reputation and on the founder market fit. Like, okay, I'm going to listen to someone who has a podcast because I know them, they work out and they have a podcast in working out. So, of course, like they're the right person, they're an authority in the space, so I should listen to them. That's the market founder fit, right? Well, I think it's a good concept, and you do have an advantage if you have that, but it's not required and it's not necessary. And you can still start a business in an industry you know nothing about as long as you want to learn about it. As long as you're open to learn about it. Because if you don't want to know it, but you still want to do a business in it, you have no place in it.
A small digression in our flow. I remember in one period, all of the people on the internet were speaking about do what you love, you'll be so happy and you'll not work a day in your life. And I hate this concept because I believe I love my job, but it gets so fucking tiring that you are constantly learning new things. And every day there is something new. And you get so drilled on it, like you get like a junkie on it. And if you don't have that dopamine of the new stuff, then you feel like you're not working. You know, I had that problem. And in some of these mental downs that I had, it was like I would be so happy to have a fabric of soap. The simplest soap, which costs $1 to produce, $1 to distribute, and $1 is the margin. Yeah. So, and I would be happy to sell one quantity, one process, one packaging, everything by distributors. And sometimes I believe that the most boring businesses, which you don't even have an emotion for, are maybe the best ones. You don't have to be like space bomb innovative to hit the money to be happy, but you need to find a business process that you are able to manage, you're able to sell, to introduce, and then make a big quantity of it.
And I have a similar story to yours, because like you were thinking about soap, and I was also like at one point in the venture studio which we're running, we had this moment. Like a colleague of mine was just like resting his feet on the wall, and he was dirtying up the wall, and I was like, you have to find a solution to that. I can't deal with that. I don't want to paint it every single time. Find a solution. So he like we had a 3D printer in the office, and he printed like some little 3D parts and took some wood from the wood shop that we had, put them together, and he made a footrest. So I looked at him, he looked at me, we both looked at the footrest and were like, that's a business. That's a business right there. Let's explore it. And in the course of like 6 months, we built an entire furniture business in the startup studio focused on like 3D printed connectors and wood boards. Why? Because it was a problem that we experienced. It was live, and we wanted to do it. We didn't know anything about furniture. We had no connection. We were programmers. We had like no clue, nothing. We shouldn't have been in that market. But we were open to learn. And in those 6 months, we learned so much, and we actually managed to sell, even though we had just the MVP, we managed to sell like 3,500 euros or something like that on an online store in like a couple of days.
Yeah.
Crazy. And just because like we jumped into it. And everybody listening to this will be like, oh, how did you come up with the idea? It wasn't coming up with annoying. It was just annoying. We didn't came up with it. Like when we actually thought about it, we just packaged it, and then we went to people and we asked, who do we want to make this for? It's for us. Well, we are students. Okay. What kind of furniture would students want? Well, let's ask them. Hey, you're a student. What kind of furniture do you want? Oh, I want it cheap. And I want, when I move out, because I move out very often, I want to take it apart, put it in a bag, and when I move next, I want to put it together as it was. I was like, okay, then let's do that. Let's do the kind of furniture that just takes apart, you put it in a bag, you take it away, and you can put it back together. Not like, I don't want to name call any brands right here, but we all know a Swedish brand that you take out and then you can't put it back together in any way, shape, or form.
It's not that, guys.
It's not the one you're thinking about. Okay.
Amazing. I mean, there are so many stories about these, and honestly, these times it's 2023, and everything is in different apps. You know, you come to the restaurant. I don't want a QR code for the menu. I want a paper menu. I don't want to see what's on the menu. I want the experience of waiter coming. Yes. And everything is buy online. I mean, for myself, it's becoming a bit annoying. You know, everything is through the phone, and I'm like an old-fashioned guy. I like to have the experiences. So it doesn't have to be, as we, let's say, concluded, it doesn't have to be a mega life-changing idea to work and to change your own life. Maybe
I can jump in on this, actually. So if you want to hear more about like ideas, I did start a series on my LinkedIn which is called Startup Idea of the Day, and I just do a little bit of research and then propose a startup idea, and I could read a couple of the ones that we already have available, let's say. They're just ideas that we came up with. We've done a bit of research, and if you want to start it. Like, just do it.
Fantastic.
Just give me 1 second, because we have them on our website.
Sure.
So I'll just quickly go through them. No explanation. You can research your own after. But first of all, navigating bracelets for bike couriers, so they know when to take left or right. Firebase style how do you call it? Database, Fire style database, but for multiplayer games with like bullying and support and for all those users. Gravity batteries, so batteries that output energy when they are let down. So you charge them up, you use the energy to charge them up to move them up to the last floor in an office building, in an elevator shaft. And then during the day, you let them flow and you use the energy from that flow to power the building. And that's a battery that you can use in the building at any point, and you save a lot of energy by that, and you don't need to be connected to the grid. Then we had a paid for water fountains in stores. Everybody sells now like water in plastic bottles. What if you just had a water fountain in there? You're dealing with some shady business there, but it could work. AI generated game assets for video games and for like indie games. Solar panels plus mushroom field. So mushrooms grow best in hot, humid, and in the shade. So it's the perfect place to mix it with solar panels, right? Because they have the shade they generate. It's humid because of the water that flows on the solar panels. And then you have also like the perfect heat.
It's legendary idea.
Yeah. What else? We had 3D virtual sets for creators. Now there's like this very cool technology that just launched like 3 or 4 months ago. And you can create 3D sets in Unreal Engine and then overlap them and create like a full set virtual, but it looks like it's real. There's actually a YouTube video really cool on that. I will send it to you. We had a grocery rating app based on the label. You would scan the label and it would tell you based on your own dietary constraints, like, oh, this is 6 out of 10, you should avoid it, or this is 9 out of 10, come on, eat it, it's fine. And the rest you can discover on our website.
Fantastic, guys. Follow Luca Stribat on LinkedIn. During the podcast, I'm sure we will put all of these posts that Luca was mentioning on your display so that you can easily fit, and also the links will be probably there. So you can follow a great content creator, quite intensive. You're good. I mean, my wall is full. Maybe because we are a new connection, but the content is really cool and it's quality. So I really appreciate it. I love people who are putting the quality inside of it. Since I'm a corporate guy, and before the corporations, I spent a part of my career in manufacturing business. So I will probably ask some dumb questions to you, and some of observations which are maybe genius for myself, but are usual for you. I was on one of the events which our friends were creating, and the biggest discussion was how the people who are creating startups come to the VC funds, come to the investors with an idea. Right. And the difference between the idea in the heads of newly formed startuppers, entrepreneurs, is fully different than what's expected by the investor. And also, once you answer that part, I would like to touch base on the VC funds in general, on the what are those? Because many of the people who will be looking this, when they hear like the short term, and they think that it's something that I cannot understand. It's something that it's so complex. So I want to go into the explanation of a VC fund, how they operate, what are they bringing to the table, and what you become. So I put a lot on your stake.
That's a very good start. I would break it down first. What is a VC, and then why there's such a discrepancy between early stage and what VCs want.
Sure.
So VCs were built for rich people. Now, we all might know someone who's like rich, or have heard of someone who's rich or very rich. When you have like $100 million in your account, you don't usually know what to do with them. Like literally in your lifetime, you could spend it, but it's not very wise to like.
Yeah, sorry for
spend
interrupting.
Yeah.
I was calculating if I'm spending monthly 5,000 Bosnian KM or 5,000 euros a month.
Yeah.
Let's say 5,000 euros a month. So it's a really luxurious life in Bosnia. It would take me 15 years to spend just 1 million.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, you can imagine how hard it is to spend 100 million. Okay, that, like even if you like actively wanted, you would still have a hard time.
Yeah.
So the rich thought, okay, I like my money. I don't want to spend it on stupid stuff. I want to build generational wealth. I want to build even more. Now that I have money brings more money, right? So what did they think about? Let's put it into something. Let's invest into something. That's how the stock market showed up, right? The stock market is just basically companies. You're buying stocks of those companies. That's why you see rich people buying other companies as well. And that's also why VCs showed up. Because the promise of a VC is the following. You go to a rich person and you say, hi, we're this VC. You give us 10 million and in 4 years, we triple your money. That's all a VC is. That's the entire vehicle. That's the entire objective. That's why they exist. To get money from the high net worth individual or the fund of funds or the whatever entity. Now even governments invest into VCs. So to get that money and then to triple it, quadruple it, make it 100x. But the idea is, of course, like breaking down the name, is venture capital. Venture means adventure. It's from adventure because you're risking it. Yeah. It's exactly like the adventure part because you're adventuring your money. You're not giving it to something reliable or something that's like very stable, you know? You're just putting your money into random companies. You never know who's there. Like you're betting on random people. You don't know them. Like the people who invest into venture funds, they don't get to meet everyone they invest in.
Yeah.
You know, they don't get to meet every single startup. They just give their money and they hope that the power law applies. Now, the power law, it's a very cool concept that's actually statistically proven to work. The power law says the following thing. Statistically, if you invest into 100 companies, the chances for one or two to bring more return than all of the other 99 is much bigger, right? So it's power in numbers, power in quantity, right?
That's you already answered my question because I just wanted to tell that the statistic, if I'm not wrong, is that 9 out of 10 startups fail. Yeah.
Most of them fail, and it's curious how still so many exist, you know, because you hear all of the startups die and yet there are so many startups. That's exactly because of the power law. So the power law says, okay, let's give each startup 100,000 euros, 200,000, a million, whatever, but let's give it to 100 startups because statistically one of them will return us 500 million euros, right? Because only one has to succeed because when it succeeds, it's going to bring in so much more revenue. Why? Because a venture capital, when they invest the money, they get equity. They get like 10%, 15%, 20% of that company. Usually not more than 20%, but it depends on the venture company. Some take even more, but that's another topic. So they get that equity. Now, when that startup grows and grows and grows and reaches like Facebook level and they list on the stock exchange, that's when a liquidity event happens. That's when basically all of that cash that they've invested in that company that was stuck basically because you can't like just take it out like give me back my money. It's stuck in the company. Now because it's on the stock exchange, it's liquid. Everyone else is bringing cash into the company to buy that stock. So now the VC can sell theirs. And that's how they make money. That's where the moment where it all turns into actual proper cash, not just like numbers on a paper. So the people, the high net worth individuals, when they invest into VCs, they invest long term. The usual term is like 10 years. But think about it. If you give somebody like $100 million and they say they're going to triple it in 10 years, that's a huge return. Huge. Like you can't find that almost anywhere else. But the chances of you losing that $100 million is very big as well. I mean, you're taking a risk at venture capital, right? And
what are the, I mean, obviously the biggest risk is the losing the money, but how often does it happen, in fact, on the venture capitals? How often does it happen that these big organizations fail and that somebody has lost that amount of money.
That's actually a very funny statistic that just came out a month ago. VCs don't actually want this to be very public, but like 90% of VCs as well don't make more than 2x return. They don't return more than twice the money. And returning less than twice the money, that's actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you're not
I'm
really
imagining the
lot.
pressure on the guys.
The pressure is huge. Being one of the top 5% venture capital who return like 3x or even more, like 100x. Like that's a very tough job.
Yeah, I started sweating imagining the pressure that comes out of it.
Like the VCs have the same kind of pressure that the startups do, but with bigger numbers.
Yeah.
You know, and of course they don't have to know all of the business technicalities, the venture capital, because at the end of the day they're like financial people, they're like economists, right? But they're handling much bigger numbers, and they're not as concerned about a startup losing 100,000 euros. They're concerned about 100 startups all losing 100,000 euros. Yeah,
it's a game. It's a big game of money, and it's really.
But you'd be surprised how much money there is for this. Like everybody says that. Okay, it's so hard to like raise from a VC, and it is because it's not like they're going to give you money so easily. But there's so many funds, even in Eastern Europe, which you would think, oh, it's like a not so developed area of the world. If you think in general, but still Eastern Europe has like 400, 500 million of total capital invested just last year.
Yeah, fantastic.
Like
and
huge.
And we usually look at it from the perspective of developing countries such as Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, which are, I strongly believe that we are not underdeveloped, and I strongly believe that we are on a good path, all of these countries in the Balkans, and that we are going to be good in the long run. But from the perspective of these investments, we don't know that there is lots of money outside of our cubicles, and this is something that I will want to touch later on in the podcast. But definitely, a lot of experts say that it has never been easier to find the money when you know how to find it.
I have to disagree.
Yeah,
I have to disagree so hard because, look, I think one very big myth that we have to get out of the way as soon as possible. People, for the last like 5-10 years since this whole startup craze started, they started saying this thing, oh, you can start it with $0. That is such pardon
bullshit.
my French, such bullshit. Like no, there is literally no business, no startup that you can start with $0. Whatever idea, even if you are the best and you know everything, you know how to do marketing, you know how to do technical, you know how to do anything, everything costs. Hosting it, buying a domain name, like I know these are small costs. But they add up. Now it's no longer 0, it's 100. Now it's not 100, it's 1,000 because you don't know how to develop a website, so you need someone to develop it for you. So that's 1,000. Okay, now you need someone to do the branding because you don't know how to do branding, for example. Like you're not the know-it-all, you're not God, so you have to pay someone to do branding. That's another 1,000. Suddenly you need 2,000 euros. Suddenly it's a month salary.
Yep.
Suddenly.
And 30 days pass so fast.
Yeah, I mean the brand book for a like normal brand, you don't do it in 30 days, you know. And it's so surprising that it's this audacity of saying you need 0 cash to start it. That's not
I fully
true.
agree on that topic. I was aiming for that it's easier than ever to put your hands into the pockets of somebody else to give you the money as an investor.
It's easier to raise.
Yeah.
It's easier, yes. So compared to, let's say, 5-10 years ago when you had to know somebody, you know, now like they actively are looking for businesses to invest in, and it's just a numbers game. Like for them, it's a numbers game. You know, they see 1,000 startups to invest in 10. You also have to ask 1,000 investors to invest in you to get one to invest. I mean, and I see so many founders like, oh, we asked 5 venture capital funds and they all said no.
Not good enough, man.
You asked 5. Like, in this way, how will you sell your product? Because then, like, okay, you need the money to sell your product, but if you ask just 5, how will you ask like 10,000 people to use your product as customers? How will you do sales? Because fundraising is also kind of sales, you know?
It's full sales. I mean, it's full sales. Because when I'm comparing it, I believe that you become successful in life and in sales once you adapt to no, you know, and when you do enough of the no's and start believing that it's not due to your hairstyle, your smile, your looks or something, but it's just a no, you know, and you invest in the improvement of yourself to boost your skills, to be more charming, to speak better about your product, about your service. And I believe it's pretty much those who go through the acceptance stage of no and realize that they have to do enough of the no's to get like the end yes. I believe that's where the juice comes, in fact.
And like taking that into the region context, sales is not as big of a culture in Eastern Europe, and I think that has to change for us to have better startups, because the tech is there. We have some of the best technology. That's why all of the like large corporates choose to outsource to us, because we really know how to build stuff, and we've had the history of engineering. We've not really had the history of sales. And I think if we manage to change that in a way and improve our sales skills, even if you're an engineer, if you learn how to do sales, you're going to be so much more successful.
Even I would like to tell you a story about one of my friends in one of the companies that I've been working. He was I don't remember exactly his role in that corporation, but he was like the biggest shot there. And when I was going to the interview, I had like the first meeting with the director of the Bosnian office, and the next step was to meet this guy. And they told me like, we will call you once he is in Sarajevo. And just expect maybe, it was end of the week. They told me next week he is in Sarajevo. He would like to drink a coffee with you, blah, blah, blah. And it's Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. And he calls me. I'm that guy. I would like to drink a coffee with you. Are you able to come for an hour on a specific place? As soon as I'm walking towards them, I see them. I put like the best suit that I have, the best shirt that I had, a nice haircut, everything. And I'm walking with my confidence towards them. I'm shaking his hand and he tells me, you got the job. I didn't even tell a word. I didn't even get to say hi.
Crazy.
And I'm like, why? He tells me, I know a sales guy once I see him. And I'm pointing him out because he was an engineer. So he came to that company as a developer. But he he had some charm in him, and he learned about sales, and he became like the top man on the specific market. You know, and the people who go from the development, from the engineering, from the pre-sales, who have that bit of acceptance of no, they become the best champions, the biggest champions in the market.
Yep, I agree. And it's very powerful to also have tech knowledge when you're selling. Because the most common questions, especially when you're selling tech products, are technical questions. And if you don't know how to answer them, or at least to maybe like try to guess an answer and then talk to the team, like it's not going to really help you with the confidence in the call, because you don't know what you're selling. That's one of the worst things, because I remember when I started selling database licenses, and one of the first meetings were like a hell for me, because I know that we are capable of doing everything towards the customer, but I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to articulate it. And I'm providing so many of knows or don't knows that I'm destroying my meetings. You know, I'm shooting at my my feet because I don't know. So the knowledge, but still, you don't have to be an expert on the topics if you want to sell. You just need to address the real need. Look, you don't need to be an expert on any topic, but you need to be an expert on learning. I think that isn't really talked about, like how to learn and understanding how you learn. Like there's very few people who can reflectively look at them and say, oh, I know how to learn. My learning pattern is this. I look at YouTube videos and then I try it myself and then I look back and I try it myself. Or I need a mentor. I learn best with a mentor and the mentor teaches me and then I execute and so on. If you know how you learn and your patterns of learning, you can learn anything because now you know how.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the biggest lessons that I got while I was in high school because I was attending a private school called Learnity, and I got this like entire process of self-reflection and understanding what learning is and what it means and how to use it, because everybody at school says learn, but nobody says how to learn. Exactly,
and that's
you know,
I think I still to this day didn't finalize that process within myself.
It's never final. It's never final. It's gonna change and it's gonna keep changing, and you have to do it early to get a good grasp of because when I was very young, I learned best with a mentor. Now I learn best in practice and by teaching others, and I'm sure that's gonna change next year.
I'm sure that. For example, on my end, it was because when I came to the IT world, it was like my first day at the specific company which I was. And on the same day, there were two engineers that were coming. So we did an onboarding together. When I heard their level of knowledge, I was like, maybe 30 days. And then they realized that I'm not the one. And they fired me. So my first objective was, okay, it's 6 months contract before they give me the real contract. Okay, let's survive the first 6 months and try to understand anything. But then I had a really fantastic mentor, even though I was so annoyed by him because he was a tough guy, but he helped me a lot and he'll know who he is. So a big hi to you, Damir. You are a great guy. He told me I'm going to put you into the fire. Go rush to the meetings. I don't care if you lose all of it. And when you go and start, you know, when you start interfering with the stress, it goes away. You find a way how to skip the complexity, how to say that you don't know shit, but it seems that you know everything, you know. So for me, the best way of learning is actually going into it. By action. I mean, to each their own. Everybody has their own. And I think that it's your job, it's your duty as if you want to be like an entrepreneur, if you want to be like the kind of person that escapes this rat race that, I'm sorry, I know I'm Romanian, but I don't support trade. I don't think that it's not the same concept of the rat race, okay? But it's about the rat race that we usually have of falling into routine. If you want to escape that routine, you have to be aware of how you learn, because then you can learn new skills that can break you out of that routine. It's as simple as that. And I think that we kind of, us, the younger generations, somehow we started believing in these lies that everything is fast and you can be a changed person within 7-10 days, a month, or 2 or 3. No, it's a big process. It's the process where you handle the hardships. I don't know, for myself, the biggest lesson of my life was when my company got to the bankrupt and when I lost pretty much everything. And I went from an expensive car to a tram and a bus. I hated myself driving in the tram, not because I'm I'm obsessed with the money, but it was the personification of everything lost, you know, and there was no hope within that time period. But from this perspective, I'm so thankful to God and to life that gave me that, because it changed everything. And they usually say that it's best to learn from the others people's mistakes, but hardly. You're never going to learn from other people's mistakes. You have to do some of your own. Yeah,
you can learn knowledge, you can't learn experience from other people's mistakes. Like the mistakes come and the experience comes from your own mistakes, you know. And like I also have a story. I wanted to say a funny story, but it's not funny at all. So a similar story, you know. I think like 2 years ago, something like that. I had a small situation in my own in the venture studio before I started Reaktor X, before I started doing the entire VC funding part. I had this situation with a member of my team. We disagreed, and I didn't respect the process. And I kicked him out without respecting. We had a very democratic process in the organization, and any decision should have been made for our like entire group, because we were like 7 or 8 people in that group. So I made the decision without calling on anyone. I kicked him out. Of course, that led to breaking up of the like if I didn't respect it, why should anyone else? So in the course of like 2 or 3 months, I had 8 people, all from the leading team of the organization, leave, all at one time. And you know, yes, it was my fault. Yes, it was one of the best learnings that I've had. But I think that out of that entire thing, out of that entire learning, that couldn't have happened if I watched it happen to someone else. That should have happened to me to be able to like learn it and to become better. I can't say I was a great leader or that I am a great leader, but that made me a bit better.
But tell me, how did you feel when you realized that it's falling apart? So I want you to describe me the feeling of it.
I mean, the feeling... I was in my 3rd year of university when it was happening, because I started this in high school, and like it was still ongoing while I was also in university, and now that it's ended, it's more focused on it. But like, I know it was my 3rd year of university, and that was the hardest. Everybody knew it was the hardest of the university that I went to. So I was just walking to class. I knew that I wasn't prepared for class. I know that we had like the final exam, we had to like turn in our essays, and I knew that it was shit. And then I passed by our former office, because I had to close the office as well because of the costs, and I had to move out. And I just put my headphones in my ears, and all the way from our former office to the university, I walked and I was crying the entire time. Sorry. So I that's all that I could do. It wasn't about like feeling anything. All I could do was just take it out.
I remember the last time I cried. It was you reminded me of it. It was we just got the baby. My son was 3 or 4 months old, and it was winters tend to be quite harsh sometimes in January, February. It was a minus outside. And I was really struggling with paying the bills, you know, because the gas was a bit expensive, and I just closed the company, and I found a new job with so miserable salary for the life that I had, meaning to pay the all of the bills for the electricity, for the baby, the food, I don't know, all of the expenses. And in that moment, my wife is not also working, so we are on one salary, which is below average. So I'm struggling monthly to monthly when the winter comes. And then it was Friday, just like today, and it stops with the gas. People came because I didn't pay the 3 bills, and they closed my gas, so it's getting cold.
Fuck.
And you know, when you are a new father, your only function is to make that baby survive. And I mean, from this perspective, if it happened now, it would be funny for me. I would find a way. I would know that it's so normal to call somebody for a help. But in that moment, you feel like the whole world is falling apart. And then I just remember I went to my bathroom, I opened up the water and just started crying, because I was won. You know, I lost, and they won. But it's a big experience on my end, and those manly tears are probably the hardest ones.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding me, but not thanks for reminding me. I got a bit emotional.
So, sorry.
I want to touch base on Bosnia, on Serbia, on Montenegro, Albania, countries that are not in the EU. As we spoken already, there are tens of thousands of ideas in all of the capital cities and all around the capital cities of the ex-Yugoslavia countries, but they tend not to be developed. as somebody who didn't have any startup in life, I know that if you want to start regular business, you either go to take a loan from the bank, which is usually much expensive. You find somebody, and in the Balkans terms, it's usually they want to split. If we are starting together, they tell let's do 50-50, 60-40, and this stuff. Yeah. And it's really hard to get funding. And in our culture, we are not used to. So how do we, as, let's say, Bosnians, attack the VC funds? How do we reach out to them? How do we make the money out of it? I mean, the business.
Right. Okay, so now it really depends on what kind of business you're running. If you're running a small, medium business that doesn't have the innovative component that we talked about, you're kind of screwed, unfortunately, because the only option still is the bank. And if the bank doesn't support you, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, because the point of venture capital and why they risk so much is because they want the innovative companies, they want the innovative startups, because those have the possibility to get to 500 million euros. I mean, you're not going to be making a honey producing business in Bosnia that's going to be as big as Google, because
of course,
you literally don't have that many people in the world who would eat honey. There's literally not enough people for that. So it has
even
to be...
though if there are people, there are so many of the producers.
Exactly. And it's very easy to become a honey producer and so on. Like, there are a lot of factors. So that's why if you want to get VC funding, and if you want to get like funding easier in general, it's easier to do it with an innovative idea, with an innovative business, with something that's a bit different, that could impact more people, that could target a larger market. Now, you could get money straight from a venture capital, but venture capital works very much akin to the former way of doing business. The former way of doing business is like, I know you, you're a good kid, you're the nephew of that guy, and but in VC is actually, oh, I know you, you have a good reputation, you've done former startup, or you've been into that program, or you know that person who's also a VC and they recommended you. It's a lot about the reputation when you're raising straight from a venture capital, especially when you're in the beginning, because in the beginning they bet on the team and they bet on their ability to execute. The idea will change, the business will change, the marketing will change, everything will change. So they bet on the team. That's why it's very important to have that relationship and to build relationship with VC. Now, if I were to advise anyone who's like starting out and has no relationship, go to an accelerator program, because that's where you build relationships and that's where you get educated. Startups are not an easy thing, and there are some specific steps to go through. There's research, there's marketing, there's like validation, that's MVP, that's prototyping. There's a lot of steps that you have to go through in order to build a startup. And that kind of information you can get for free in some accelerators, paid in some other accelerators, or just incubators, pre-accelerators as well, programs in general. The EU has some great programs, but if we are not talking about the EU, one great program where they could apply is Reaktor X, which is the program that I'm running. Now, we also accept idea level, and the concept is that we're also funding you. Like, we've ran one program in spring where we funded startups with 25,000 euros cash, straight up, 75,000 euros in credits and in support for them, like Google Cloud, Azure, and so on. The things that you would usually spend money, Oracle credits and so on. The kind of things that you would spend money on, right, as a startup. And then we also match them with a really good founder, like unicorn level founder, because the reputation of that founder, if they match, rubs off on you. That really helps as an early startup, having the reputation of a really good founder that's a mentor to you, because then it's much easier to get an entry. They also have their own connections that could help you, raise faster. Our program, I think it's a good fit, because we're now expanding into the region. We're trying to get even more money, 50K, 90K. I can't 100% put my finger on it just yet, because we're still raising ourselves. But I think it's going to be a very good option for the startups in the Balkan region.
Fantastic. One of the ideas that I had was, and I'm giving it for free, is let's make the academy or even a small university to make the good salespeople.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because all of the sales that I know, and sales guys and sales girls, which are fantastic, they've been self-learned. They went through the hell from the cold calling. They went through some ridiculously micromanagers selling some solutions which were not there yet and even sold. And whenever I see that somebody experiences issues within the business, in the end of the conversations, they start telling to me that their sales is not so strong. And then on the other end, in our culture, there is not the owners do not understand the concept of sales, meaning they do not motivate salesperson with enough incentives, not just money, but with the freedom, because sales is freedom. If you are late to the morning call or live meeting, if you are a performer, nobody really cares. If you are legit with bringing your numbers, whatever you do, it will be okay, And I think that's why people choose sales as a profession, because even though it's really a pressury job, because
it is.
Yeah, in my experience,
really
sometimes I lay in the night, just want to sleep, and it just crosses through my mind about the forecast that I have, and I stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning awake. It's something that you cannot run away from. But on the other end, you have the freedom that you can outperform everybody, not even being in the office anytime, So
I agree, and it's a good idea. But let me tell you why it's not a startup.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to be the asshole here, and I'm going to break it down. So, how would you make this a $500 million business? How would this scale? Instead of just. There is an answer to this. It would scale by, growing and franchising and adding experts, but that will take you years, if not decades. Where compared to a startup that's fully online, that's software based, that's a tool that you just add some Google ads, which could scale to other countries in a couple of months, not in a couple of years. You're comparatively very slow. And for venture, which have 10 years sounds like a lot, but it's very little. In 10 years, you couldn't build a business to return the entire money that you would get from a VC at the level at which you would be growing, right? So that's why it's not a startup, but it's a business. And I think everybody's right now chasing the dragon. Everybody's I want to do a startup. You don't have to do a startup. Right. Nobody has to do You're not forced. Nobody forces you to do stuff. You can do a business and still be successful and be happy and live your life and make millions of dollars, and even actually keep more of it than a startup.
When I was thinking about how to open today's podcast, my question was to ask you what is a startup, and then I changed my mind because it would probably not be effective enough. So throughout the conversation, I wanted to make the distinction because people tend to understand startups as you form a company and it's a startup. This is the biggest misconception within young people. And you answered, and I believe we succeeded to explain to the listeners and the viewers of this that the startup is not equal to business, and business is not equal to startup.
Yep. Just very simple. Business is idea. Startup is innovative idea. Yeah. And it's a very specific growth path for a startup. It's about growing fast. It's about also growing recklessly and going very fast into the ground as well. It's and I say this with all the love that I have in my heart for this entire industry. But it's casino, okay? It's casino with business. Startup is just a big, big, big casino, and you're betting on a lot of things, and you're just hoping one sticks. But it's still an informed bet. Yeah. You have to do some work. You have to know what you're doing. You have to get some knowledge before you start betting.
So the question I have is, big corporations, more than 100,000 people employed, strong network, strong ties, long-term at the companies, and then startups fighting with them. So how does that fight ends and who wins?
3 ways. So the fight usually goes three ways. One, the startup kills the corporate. That's the rarest of the rarest of the rarest of scenarios, right? The advantage in that case for the startup is that a startup moves so much faster compared to a corporate. For a corporate, to get a new feature implemented, it would take 3 to 4 months on approvals, development, and then approvals again, and then deployment. For a startup, that can take a day or a week, right? So the advantage in that case for the startup is the speed. They can kill it. That's one way it could go. Second is bot. Second is the startup sells to that corporate. And that has suddenly started to become a pretty interesting scenario, and startups started like thinking, okay, let's exit to corporates. Because before that, everyone was so focused on IPO. Let's list ourselves on the stock market exchange, because that's maximum liquidity. That's as much cash as we can get. But actually, corporates started getting so big that some even offer better terms than the actual stock market, right? So that's one way to go. And if you think about it and you plan it accordingly, you can sell to a corporate. Then the third way it could go is getting crushed, which is 95% of situations, especially when you don't develop something innovative enough, or when that corporation has already been working on that. And the timing was just not right, and they just flat out kill you.
Yeah, I believe it's a never-ending. Fight, and I mean, big businesses will always, let's say, keep at least a bit of the corporate in order to have that security within them, the numbers of the people employed, etc. But definitely, I think the majority will be. And I saw it in the market in different corporations. Many times, even those companies that are bought out from the corporation, these solutions work the best, even better than the core business. Specifically if they save the whole product teams and the core team, which you were referring to. If they save the initial team and give them the right salaries, the terms, conditions, then definitely these solutions become top niche of the markets and they become the best.
The best/worst example for this is when Nest sold to Google. Like Nest, they were doing like the thermostat and the like home appliances and stuff like that, smart home. They sold to Google, and the founder Tony Fadell actually left because Google wasn't able to integrate Nest well enough because of the clash of cultures. So for a while it was really hard to take in that company. The founder had to leave, Tony Fadell had to leave from that company in order to be properly absorbed. And then Google tried to sell off Nest because they couldn't absorb it again. So it was like a ping pong between them. And yet, I mean, who doesn't have a Google Home? Who is using like Google Nest Hub and all of those devices that like...
There are never enough guarantees that you're going to succeed. Definitely. And since we are approaching the end of our time frame, and I'm really enjoying this, and you are so interesting and you have so much knowledge that I would enjoy it if we were speaking 2 to 3 hours. And to jump off, you are really the guy who from whom people can learn a lot. How do you find the inspiration in a daily business? So that's something. Who do you have somebody to look up to? For example, one of my guests told me that Elon Musk, for example, is his like business guideline. One of the guests told me that Prophet is his guideline. Everybody has some point in their mind of the daily motivation, and within that answer I would like to give a couple of advices to specifically young people or younger people who are thinking about going into startups, or even doing a 9 to 5 and trying to change their lives through creating a startup and going into it. So like an overall conclusion of the main messages you have for the people who are going to be listening this.
Okay. I'll start with the first part, who I'm looking up to. If you asked me like a couple of years ago, I would have named some names, but then like I had this realization even after that like event with the people leaving, I realized that I'm not actually looking at people up, I'm looking at people sideways. Because the most inspiration and the most inspired that you can get is from people doing different things than you. I look with so much admiration at my friends who are like therapists or trainers or graphic designers or artists or like doctors, dancers and like stage actors, and I have so much admiration for them, and I learn every single minute that I spend with them, I learn something new. Because I know that I in the learning mode, I listen to them, I learn something new that I can take and use for my own. So I look sideways always, because I don't think there's like a better human than all of us, or Elon Musk is just as human as everyone else. We're all human. But if you're next to Elon Musk and you get the chance to look sideways to him,
take everything.
Well, look at it, get the info, but don't like put him on a pedestal, because that will certainly affect also your like your self-worth. Because you're thinking, if I'm not like that, I'm not worthy enough. You are. Everybody is. And you should use that.
Yeah. One of my friends had some issues with trying to register the car, and he had to call some of the big people, not to ask them for the favor, but to explain to them that their employees are not doing their job. And he's younger. He's really raised fantastically, a wonderful guy, but he is so stressed out when he needs to call somebody who is, let's say, important. And I remember myself 15 years ago, I had the same issue. You know, I was thinking about how will they respond? You know, and I was thinking, and then my father, in fact, he's a guy with superior self-confidence, and he tells me. And I was meeting one of the politicians who was quite attractive, and he accepted my meeting. And I was so like flushed out. I was sweating, and And my father tells me, "Okay, I understand that he's important, but do you think that he goes to the bathroom and sits in the bathroom the same way as you?"
Yeah, we all shit at one point.
And honestly, it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Understanding that every person, no matter how important he or she is the same person. Like I am, you are. It just depends in which phase of your life you are. You know, maybe I'm a better than in my 30s than that guy is in his 50s. You know, or vice versa. But we're all people, and there is nobody too big. You know, so that you have to stand up when
those are roles. Those are not humans. Those are the roles that you see so big. That is just the chair. You know, the human that's in it, it's as normal sized as possible. It's just the chair that's big, you know. And regarding the advice that I would have for like early stage people who are like trying to break out of this rat race, again, no association with aforementioned celebrities. So this
but it will be interesting if we touch that point. I have some stuff that I agree, but we'll keep it for the next season.
Season 2, let's talk about. But my advice would be, if you want to break out a bit, you want to like get to know the startups, maybe try something of your own, or maybe like you don't want to be just 5 to 9. You also want to have something on the side. You also want to try something new. First is learn how you learn, because whatever you start, you're going to need to learn something new to start that thing. Right? I mean, you got the job because you know something, or you got a job because they wanted to teach you something, and now you know it, and you have that knowledge. If you want to start something new, you need new knowledge. It's as simple as that. So open up yourself to learning, understand what it means to learn and how you learn. That's step 1. Step 2, pick something. It doesn't matter what it is. You want to do graphic design, you want to do UI UX, you want to do, I don't know, dancing. You want to learn how to dance. Do it and establish a habit out of it, because habits are the most effective way to build on something and have it long term, right? If you know you want to do dancing, start a habit of going to the dance class every single week and make it a habit. And it's like, you can't miss it. Don't disappoint yourself, you know, because if you miss it once and you're like, I'll go next week, you'll disappoint yourself and you'll just leave it for later. So first is learning, then habit, and then it's just a matter of putting it into like action. And the action doesn't have to be alone. You know, if you can, bring someone along for the ride, because two heads think much better than one.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, even there's a myth in our society that it's wrong to do the business with your friends because you are going to either lose the money or you're going to lose the friends. But as much as the broken partnership there are successful ones. But we tend to speak less about the successful ones, and we tend to show those who did not succeed.
Depends on the business and depends on the relationship that you have with that friend. Yeah. I mean, are you fully honest with that friend most of the time? Then yes, start a business with them, because at one point, one of you will leave. Statistically, one of you will leave before the business is exited. So then, if you know you are honest and you are true and you are both reasonable adults, then you're going to have a tough but fair discussion. And one of you will leave and the other will compensate the one that leaves. It's as simple as that. But if you're starting, and I'm telling you from experience, if you're starting a business with someone who is not mature enough, who is not who doesn't have a grip on life very clearly, that's when things break up. That's when everybody says, oh, don't start a business with your friends, because they started it when they weren't both mature enough to understand what the business is. Yeah,
and they were not able even to create the perspective of what could happen.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Once again, I really appreciate you coming, and I'll be waiting you once you're on the vacation, because this was for the business purposes. I believe that we touched enough for the beginning on the startups cultures, on the VC funds, on life in general, and I'm quite sure that we are going to meet again. So thank you, Luca, and let's grab some coffee.
Let's grab some coffee. Thank you.